from the heart of Central Florida, a neighbor's choice. I'm David Gornoski, your host. So glad to be with you once again in our beautiful Central Florida neighborhoods where the problems we have, they're not that hard. We have to roll up our sleeves, think for ourselves, be willing to challenge the peer pressure feelings, to go along with the crowd, to go along with conformity. This program disrupts that whole narrative, as we always do, Monday through Fridays from 4 to 6 here on WHBO 1040 AM. Also, News Radio Orlando, 540 AM, 93.1 FM, 94.1 FM, and across the world on our Facebook and YouTube live streams. We're so glad to be with you. And today is Thursday, which means we tend to focus on science and you. And so that means we get into a glorious dance of learning, wisdom, growth that challenges the sacred cows that we're supposed to get from our TV and our newspapers and all the little experts that spend their whole lives making sure they keep the special interest happy. That's just what happens when you have top-down solution mechanisms for navigating times like the one we're in today. So that's what we are all about when we do our Thursday show. We do science and you. You and science need to have a dance. You need to learn, you need to grow, and you need to not just rely on so-called experts to do all the thinking for you from on high. And so joining me today is someone who has been a great advocate for transforming thousands of people's lives, and that is Dr. Ken Berry. How you doing, Ken Berry? We have Ken Berry. Dr. Berry. Okay, we're going to hold on for a second, see if we can get him on. But we're excited to have Dr. Ken Berry hopefully later on the program where we're going to get into nutrition. So this is something that I think our program is always going to be putting in the forefront of our listeners. And that is to talk about nutrition. That is to talk about immune system building. That is to really focus on things that we can do in our lives right now to make our lives better off, more healthy, more sustainable. And so to do that, we're going to have Ken Berry on as soon as we can. I think we're having a little issue with the connection. But if you have a question about immune system, we're going to have this medical doctor on to address those questions. Perhaps you're wondering what vitamins you should take, what supplements you should take. That's what you can ask. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. What's the best way to keep your immune system going strong? Anytime. What's the best way to keep your body from being frail and fragile or inflamed? Anytime. 727-587-1040. And that's the number to call if you have a question. And so later on the program, we're also going to have our chief science advisor, physicist Dr. Yu, who is always on our Thursday edition of the program. Sometimes he makes special appearances on other editions that we do throughout the week. But Thursdays is our science focus. And Dr. Yu is going to come on and talk about some of the things going on in the world of the cosmos, in the world of astronomy, in the world of electricity, in the world of our human health too. We're going to get into a little bit of that with some of the research that Dr. Yu and I have been doing together. And so that's the exciting thing about our program is, look, if you want to just get politics and blame game type stuff, you can get that all day, every station in the world. Every program in the world has got that. That's just the same squawk box, same cheap little imitation of everybody else that are, oh, it's this team, and then everybody says the same line. Have you ever noticed that so many news programs, they all sound the same? Have you ever noticed how political commentators, they all sound the same? There's like, you get two choices, you pick two sides, and each person on each side sounds identical to the person on the other side, and then everybody, they say the same talking points at the same time on cue, like Pavlov's dogs, and it's just the same ad nauseum waste of time. But what I like about what we try to do on this program is we're not going to get into the blame games of who should we get and who should we demonize. We're just going to try to solve problems and empower each other with information that will help people get their humanity back, get their dignity back, to get their uh, love of their neighbor at the center of everything they do in their lives. Relying on the experts from on high is not the solution for our problems. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and we're going to see if we can get Ken Berry on in just a moment. Let's go ahead and take a break, please. Okay. Okay, I guess we're going to keep.
Wash your hands about a zillion times. Studies show that the average person touches their face 23 times.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your host, and we're live, and we're having a great time exploring some of the things that we do on our Science and You focus. That's where we get into scientific topics related to medicine, nutrition, health, and a variety of different issues that relate to things that matter most in our lives. If we don't have health, how can we pursue wealth, right? If we don't have health, how can we enjoy anything? Health is the foundational key. And let's see if we have Dr. Ken Berry with us now. Dr. Berry? Okay, still having issues with the phone system with him, so we're going to try to see what's going on with that. But I'm going to get into some other stories. We have been looking at kind of the ever-changing reports coming out of the guys who would be our nannies. They want to be our nannies. They want to be our little protectors, and they keep changing their predictions for what we can expect. They were saying if you do everything we tell you, shut down your whole life, maybe we'll avoid X amount of deaths. Then they change the number, lower, 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 lower. And then they always excuse and protect themselves, as good bureaucrats are known to do, by saying, well, see, the reason why it's working is because you did what we told you to. We're not having the amount of deaths that we had before because you did what we told you to. See, it's all because of us. And there's no real way to measure that, is there, right? Actually, there could be, but it may not be the measure they want to see. So that's what I'm trying to navigate. Is I don't want to fall prey to the groupthink that just trusts these experts. And Dr. Fauci has become kind of a god for the mainstream media. Someone who they hang on to every word he says for every aspect of life. Beyond even medicine, and they this is what humans do. They like to raise up little gods that they can tell, please command me, tell me what to do, tell me how to think about these things, tell me which way to go. And it's amazing how the folks in the progressive media, they're so enlightened, they're so liberated, but they sure love authoritarian control. They sure love top-down, micromanagement of every aspect of our lives. And they breed that atmosphere to those people who listen to those programs, because it seems like there is a preponderance of folks who like to tattle on their neighbors. Those tend to be the ones who probably are listening to the establishment dinosaur media, because those are the ones that inculcate a spirit of fear, paranoia, and submission to authoritarian control. And so you get this whole business all the time about, oh, if you see your neighbor going outside and there's more than two people with them or something, call up somebody. Call the police. If he's playing Frisbee in the park, call the police. That's the kind of atmosphere that media oftentimes likes to feed into. And it's an atmosphere that I have no time for. And I hope you do too, because this is not the kind of atmosphere America was ever about. It's not the kind of atmosphere that is based in reality. It's based in hive mind groupthink. That's what it's based in. And so that's what we have to always be on guard about. One of the things that I think is a big problem is this, I've heard Bill Gates and all these people who think they know better than everybody saying the only thing we've got to work on is just, try to get these like a new vaccine or something, and they're saying maybe we can't even have a normal life with normal freedoms and normal God-given freedoms until this special thing is brought out and make sure everybody has it. And I just think, who made these people think they were the kings? Who made these people dictators that they could try to create this kind of situation and superimpose their will based on their, narrow perspective? Do the people like Bill Gates, do the people like Dr. Fauci, do they understand that this, epidemic could be solved without having to wait for years and years for some kind of treatment that they create, a new one? Maybe it could be something like antibiotics, generic antibiotics, zpak, doxycycline, things of that nature that we have been investigating on this program that could show promise in being able to prevent the virus from being a lethal reality for people. That's what the scientific literature seems to lead us in that direction, that something like doxycycline, which is 10 cents, costs 10 cents to make. It's a generic. It's FDA approved. And it wipes out the senescent aging cells, which are the hosts for this virus and other viruses like it. So if you kill the cells that are the open door for the virus to wreak havoc,
then
you've created a situation in which you can solve this problem perhaps faster than people in the established circles think. That's what we're going to look at and continue to unpack on this program. And that's what, I think is really important. If we don't have that kind of forward, courageous thinking, then we're not going to be able to really get anything done. Because if we wait for bureaucrats who are basically just, they're serving somebody else, they have special interests. They have, and it's I'm not saying whether they're bad intended or not. When you are given such a monopoly power, you don't know what you don't know. You get caught up in the bureaucratic entrenched way of doing things. And that way of doing things precludes ideas outside of the box, ideas that don't have massive profit margins granted to them by the government. And so that's the problem that I have with this whole status quo approach to doing this relief effort from a medical perspective, is you don't get to have the conversation where you say, excuse me, wait a second. You guys are telling everybody, like Dr. Fauci and some of those guys have been saying, hey, don't say much about hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, Trump, because there hasn't been enough clinical trials. But, isn't that kind of dishonest when they know the idea that you could have the most robust, fanciest, control groups and trials done immediately when people are doing these things? Obviously, doctors are going to use ad hoc advice about what they're seeing work for other doctors around the world, and it's not going to produce the most finest clinical trials up front. And so why would you tell people, oh, don't try anything as a doctor until we can do clinical trials? I think that, to me, is a dishonest way of framing this to the public, to the point where I've seen folks deranged on Twitter because their minds are so owned by the state-serving media that they want to lock up Trump for merely suggesting that other doctors are finding hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin to have some effect for folks in this situation. So why is it, and how did we get to a point in society where people want to lock people up for trying to solve problems and save lives, but doing so in a way that's proactive and not submitting to special interests and bureaucracies? Like, how did we get to this point where people want to tear people up for that? At what point does your blind hatred for political figures stop? At what point does that just say, you know what does it matter? If this helps, then that's what matters. Saving people's lives. If this is what doctors can use to prevent people from dying from this new virus, why do I want to bash and call for the arrest of Donald Trump? That's truly insane. It's truly maniacal. It's delusional. It's deranged in some sense. It's madness of crowds. And unfortunately, madness of crowds is so often what is amplified and exacerbated by the old TV and newspaper media. Kyle Griffin at the New York Times had a story where he was trying to basically tie Trump's advocacy of doctors looking into hydroxychloroquine, this anti-malarial drug. It says, quote, if hydroxychloroquine becomes an accepted treatment, several pharmaceutical companies stand to profit, including shareholders and senior executives with connections to the President Trump himself, who himself has a small personal financial interest in Sanofi, this company that owns the hydroxychloroquine, I guess. And as someone pointed out, Jordan Schatchell online says, this guy, Kyle Griffin, is advancing this New York Times story that says the president has a small stake in the company which makes this hydroxychloroquine. But New York Times does not reveal his small stake is valued between $99 and $1,485 total. So, to me, that a paper with the reach that the New York Times has, that they would just know that people are in the middle of a new thing, a new sickness, and know that lives could be saved by having this kind of stuff tried by doctors who find it to be a valuable thing to try, but saying, you know what, it doesn't matter to me. That's not going to work for me. I'm just going to abandon all concern for my humanity, for other people, my human concern for people's well-being, and support an attack against the president for pushing this information to the public that hydroxychloroquine could work. That's not elite. That's not progressive. That's not bleeding heart to do that. I don't know if the hydroxychloroquine is the best thing out there, right? This is something people are trying as they go. I happen to think that azithromycin, which is the other drug Trump has mentioned, but not as much front and center, I happen to think that azithromycin as an antibiotic and doxycycline could be a much more promising place to do clinical trials immediately for this SARS-2 coronavirus. That is what is concerning to me. That if you can't even look at the facts and say, you know what, if this helps people, I'm going to shut my mouth and stop trying to hate and destroy and attack and make a New York Times headline or story that makes this false impression that maybe the only reason why the president was promoting these generic drugs is because the president has a financial stake in the companies that make them, even though those drugs are completely generic. They're inexpensive. They're things that you don't need to have to worry about in terms of needing insurance to pay for. That's the thing that's just baffling to me. It's baffling to me that folks know what's right. They know that human life is what's most important. They know about empowering people with knowledge. Many clinics have been using hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. And instead of just saying, you know what, people need help, I will just succumb to the madness of crowds and let my obsession, which I believe the left has an adoration for Trump. They want to be him. They love him. They're obsessed with him like an ex-lover stalking somebody or something. And they're obsessed with this man so much that they can't think straight, they can't talk straight, and they can't human straight, right? They can't even just be human with people and say, hey, this is a guy trying to get something done. Instead, they've got to try to say, nope, he's got a financial stake about $1,400 on this company for a generic drug. It's not even on patent from what I understand. This is truly disgusting, folks. But we'll try to navigate this and get to the truth, get to some positive solutions when we continue live on A Neighbor's Choice. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski. We're live. Here's a headline: Archbishop calls for mass exorcism. So maybe that'll do the trick. Another headline on Drudge Report says there's an Easter crackdown. So is there going to be, what is this all about? Let's see what the headline says. There's an AP story. 16.8 million Americans are out of work, and Easter celebrations move online. I don't know if this is the biggest blunder governments have ever done in response to a new challenge or a new crisis, but it certainly looks like it could be. And people say that this is a time for surrendering our power, surrendering our love for liberty, and we'll get it back some point. That's what the dummies say, the ones that are you hear on squawking on television and in newspapers. But I don't think that there's ever a time to surrender what was never granted to you from governments to the first place. Let's see if we have our guest on. Do we have Dr. Yu with us?
Yes, I'm on the call.
Great. Dr. Yu, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Fantastic. Thank you for bringing me on.
Yeah, what do you think about all the things going on right now? I mean, you've been following this, and we've been following this for months now on the program together. We've been looking at the medical side of things, been looking at the social policy side of things. What is your take on how things are going right now?
Well, so many things going on, especially coronavirus. And I know you have been a drive force to try to push this as a new trial, maybe coming the new trial about the zpak and dox healing on the coronavirus. I believe that could be a game changing. This is not the same as the president talking about hydroxychloroquine. I don't believe that single drug will work unless it has to be combined with the zpak.
Right.
That's going to work.
Wait, say that again. I didn't hear that. Say that a little louder.
Oh, okay. I said the combination of hydroxychloroquine and zpak. I believe that's the part where it will work. If just use hydroxychloroquine, it's by itself, I don't think that's effective. Then much effective.
Yeah, I think that the thing that's interesting is that most of the people that have been talking as the medical experts, because they got an MD or something, they say that the zpak would only be for like secondary bacterial infections like pneumonia in these patients that have coronavirus. But as you and I have looked at, Dr. Yu, it looks like scientific trials in the past have demonstrated that the zpak is not just effective against bacteria, but also viral infections. They've showed evidence of Zika and Ebola being dealt with zpak, azithromycin,
That's right. And I believe scientific theory behind this one is very solid. If you think about it, the virus cannot be survived by itself. It has to be carrier. It has a carrier, and to say like a bacteria type of cell to carry this one in order to survive for the virus to reproduction. However, because the senescent cell is so weak, because it's an older dying cell, and it's a damaged cell, so easier to be invaded by virus. However, the zpak itself, that's the function, is killing this senescent cell, the older cell. So that by killing the cell itself, basically destroy the manufacture of the virus, the environment of virus. So that's why I believe the antibiotics will also work in this case. work for bacteria as well as virus.
And zpak is something that you've been talking about for a long time, and that's interesting how your general
Yes,
praise of this drug has borne some real promise and some potential in this current epidemic.
that's surprisingly. I have been sick in the since I arrived United States like 31 years ago. I have a cold, sick, a virus, bacteria infection, or maybe virus infection all my years, 30 years. So I took so many different type of antibiotics, in this country, dozens, maybe 30, at least 30 different types, until I moved to Florida, and my physician prescribed me this zpak. It is so much different than any of the antibiotics that I took ever in my life. The one thing I noticed is that when you take this one, I don't have any symptoms as I took anything different than just take a food. There's no symptoms. However, my energy level instantly going up, and then my cough, my sickness, running nose, sore joints, all gone less than 3 days. So by the fourth day, the fifth day, so it's only 5 day dose, right? Completely symptoms gone. So and there's no any side effect. So that's why I thought I treated this, and this is called a wonder drug for me. And then I persuaded every member in my family to take it. And since then, since I got to Florida, it's 17 years now. And we never, every 4 members in our family never take any other drug except zpak. And we are all healthy. So I believe, and the most striking thing when you mentioned about Dr. Lasanti used the zpak to treat cancer. That's number one, surprising me, and the number two, it do anti-aging effect. I thought, wow, this is just the 3 birds, 1 stone.
Right.
It can kill a virus plus bacteria, as well as anti-aging and cure cancer.
And that's just the 3 starting. There could be a lot of other things that thing could do that we don't know about yet. We just need to.
I believe you are pushing for this called a trial for the coronavirus trial with the combination of 2 antibiotics, zpak and doxycycline, could be game changing.
Right. Tell us a little bit about, we've been exploring this antibiotic journey for a few years, you and I. What was you're a physicist, so you're not a physician. But how did you, when I first asked you, let's let people know this, how did you first get the idea that an antibiotic like a zpak could be effective against something like cancer? How did you get that idea?
Yes. Number one, I noticed zpak is so effective in my body, even though sometimes the physician said, "Oh, you might have a virus infection, not a bacteria infection." So they may reluctant to prescribe the antibiotics to me. And so that's why I sometimes have to argue with them. Say, actually, it helps me, regardless of whether you say virus or bacteria. So this is my personal experience. However, the reason for me to think about it, why this zpak could have an effect to cancer, that's due to one reason. When I study literature, because I'm studying physics, right? I noticed one literature talking about it. This antibiotics, the particles of antibiotics can actually be directed by magnetic field. What that means, antibiotics is highly magnetic charged particles. So it can direct or antibiotics can find those bacteria. Based on what? Based on the magnetic field. I thought, oh my goodness. So bacteria, if you look at the structure of a crown-like, there's spikes all over the place. I know bacteria is a highly charged particle. So that's why it's so dangerous. It's kind of penetrating normal particles.
What makes it charged? Let's slow down and try to unpack some of this. What makes it charged?
Oh, okay. The charge, normally, we say charged particle, we're talking about the electric charge, which is different. In this case, I'm talking about the magnetic charge. Basically, if every single particle have magnetism, it's a little magnetic particle. So when you have a magnetic particle, so you have a north and a south, right? So
Right.
now you have a dipole. So the dipole itself, can combine with normal cell and basically can change in the normal cell, becomes a virus cell. However, antibiotics can kill this kind of the bacteria, can kill bacteria, because antibiotics also has a magnetic charge. So charge means has a magnetic field. So what happens, I believe, because the both have a magnetic field. So what happens is if they are bind together, if their structure very similar. So now positive combined with negative, negative combined with positive, what happens? Neutralize, basically disarmed the weapon. That's the charge, that's the magnetic field. The neutralized field. I said, oh, that could be the mechanism for the antibiotics work with this called virus or bacteria.
Or cancer. That's what you were focused on when I asked you, yeah.
Oh, yes, cancer. Cancer, based on the, so many doctors we interview, cancer cell is nothing more, just a damaged normal cell. So that's why the next cell, older cell, is all metabolism is very slow or die down. So that's why it becomes older cell, becomes a damaged cell. So I believe they are all related. So cancer cell is a damaged cell. Damage is due to what? Due to infection or due to fermentation. Because changing the property. However, antibiotics has the same effect and kill those damaged cells. Basically, the next cell is the damaged cell, older cell. So that's why it can kill them. It can kill them.
And to me, that's just fascinating to me because a lot of people are suffering more from the cancer treatments than they are from cancer. And I was looking at the Center for Disease Control, CDC government website, that said there's something like 655,000 people died of cancer, I think is last year or something around there. So almost 700,000 people died of cancer. That may be more than what's going to die of coronavirus, apparently, So that's a pandemic too. Let's solve this too. Let's continue live on A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski. You're listening to our Science and You edition of the show with our Chief Science Advisor, Dr. Yu. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Sharon.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, David Gornoski. We're live across Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, and Sarasota, as well as Orlando, Polk County, Sanford. We're everywhere in the I-4 corridor, and then we're worldwide with our great and fun listeners and viewers on Facebook and YouTube. Always glad to hear from you all. Always glad to be a part of this fight for freedom and wisdom. The number to call is 727-587-1040. We're talking about our Science and You edition that we do each Thursday. And we have our chief science advisor for the program for all things A Neighbor's Choice, Dr. Yu, with us. Dr. Yu, so we've been unpacking our journey of finding the amazing potential for zpak and other antibiotics to be used on the front lines of fighting things like cancer, aging, which is the foundation for a bunch of diseases that hurt us, and then this coronavirus with Dr. Lasanti's work in England. You know, Dr. Yu, Lasanti is one of the most cited scholars. According to Google Scholar, he's listed as like number 30, 33 or something like that for United Kingdom in terms of most cited scholars in scientific literature, dead or alive. He's up to 90,000 citations. And you know what's amazing to me, Dr. Yu, to get that many citations, and how many of these people have figured out that they need to start replicating and bringing this antibiotic treatment for cancer stem cells to the market,
Yes. I remember when we interviewed him a couple last week or something, he mentioned one thing very interesting. He said, why didn't they try to cure the coronavirus, treat the coronavirus by the zpak alone? He wanted to have a data as a basis data to judging. So is that hydroxychloroquine effective, or is zpak, or plus some other drug? I believe his approach is very, very called scientific or engineering.
Right.
You need you every time you do one, compare with another one. Just do two, right, wrong, and you can compare. I believe his approach.
Well, in my discussions with him, Lasanti has suggested that perhaps what would be most effective would be to do a clinical trial with azithromycin alone, and then doxycycline alone, the other antibiotic, and then try them in combination together. And then you could try them in combination with a third spoke. And we've talked about ideas for what that would be if we could find a clinical trial to do this, which we're in the process of investigating and trying to see who in the States could help us do this. But Dr. Yu, that's exciting to me is when Dr. Lasanti's team did a initial clinical trial with breast cancer patients, they found that when they used zpak, the azithromycin, also known as zpak, when they put zpak in combination with doxycycline and vitamin C, it was like a big improvement in its attack against killing off the cancer stem cells. Cancer stem cells, for those who are not familiar, are the cause of metastasis. That's what makes cancer so deadly, is when it metastasizes into other parts of the body. And so what Lasanti's team found was, if you use doxycycline and azithromycin together, and then if you added the vitamin C, it was a very potent combination in the small and limited trial and for breast cancer patients. So, Dr. Yu, to me, that gives us a clue that perhaps we need to look at how maybe doxycycline and zpak could be used together to maybe increase different mechanisms for eliminating the conditions for this virus to be deadly for people,
That's how, that's the scientific approach. Try one parameter at a time and then compare. I believe that's exactly the goal of Dr. Lasanti team try to do. And that's what you try to push for. Do trial scientifically and try individual and combine.
How could, people just are probably might be listening to this for the first time. They might say, how is it possible? You're telling us, doxycycline is the most commonly prescribed prescription in America. It's used for acne and things like that. How could something so simple right under our noses be a frontline attack against this scary new virus or even cancer of all things?
Well, one thing is the concept. We have a misconception about cancer. We call it, that's a generic disease instead of it's a metabolic disease. If it's a metabolic disease, you can be treated by the common, FDA-approved medicine available. But if you consider this is a generic, so many things probably in the school, so we were taught differently. And also, Dr. Lasanti also mentioned about the same thing as we have been along.
Right.
The so-called antibiotics are only effective to bacteria, not to virus. I don't believe this conclusion is true. So that's why we need some revolutionary thinking.
It's another cool thing, Dr. Yu, that we're going to continue to explore. I'm going to try to get Dr. Thomas Seyfried from Boston College, who is a world-renowned biologist who's also been fighting cancer. He's been using the ketogenic therapy, getting people in ketosis, right? And I was talking to another person who won't be named right now, who is a leading guy in a lot of these scientific research for these different issues. And they mentioned to me the other day, hey, the keto diet, that kills senescent cells too. And I said, aha, that's another so it's killing senescent cells, and it's also killing cancer cells with Dr. Seyfried's work in Boston College. And then these antibiotics are killing senescent cells. So there seems to be a smoking gun, Dr. Yu, and you and I are on the hunt for it. It's exciting, isn't it?
Yes, there is a difference between all antibiotics versus zpak. I believe there's a difference. Because when I have a sickness, I use all other kind of antibiotics. It doesn't work. The zpak is such a very, very unique type of things we call antibiotics, but its effect is way beyond the regular antibiotics. I believe the structure of zpak, it is different than other type of antibiotics. So that means you treat a different disease, you have a different structure, you will have a different effect.
Let's continue this live on A Neighbor's Choice with Dr. Yu. This is our Science in You program. We're going to unpack more exclusive scientific discoveries and explanations when we continue in just a few moments. I'm David Gornoski. Godspeed.
Your information, go to youarethespokesperson.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Lang, board-certified optometric physician and certified nutritional specialist, host of popular talk show Ask the Doctor. I've researched and developed an amazing new omega-3 product that you'll see incredible results with. It's called Fortify Super Omega-3 Max. I had one of the top Norwegian omega-3 research teams in conjunction with myself and Fortify Vitamins aid in the development of this advanced omega-3. This product is the most potent and purest triglyceride form omega-3 in the United States today. Omega-3 is great for all aspects of your health and well-being, especially in this unprecedented, challenging time. I am giving a 25% discount with promo code RADIO during this viral pandemic. Go to my website, fortify.com. That's FORTIFEYE. Remember the EYE in Fortify. That's fortify.com. Enter the promo code RADIO to receive the 25% discount.
The following message is sponsored by the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
As prescription costs rise, many Medicare beneficiaries are having difficulty keeping up. The Florida Department of Elder Affairs SHINE program may be able to help. SHINE counselors can guide you to money-saving programs, including one that may help pay your Medicare Part D costs. For more information, call 1-800-963-5337 or go to floridashine.org.
From the heart of Central Florida, you are listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski, your host. Happy to be here as always for our Science and You edition of the program. That's where we come to you together to unpack mysteries of the universe, how we relate as human beings, the nature of our minds and our consciousness, how electricity works, how gravity works, how our atoms work in our body, and how it relates to breakthroughs right under our noses in medicine. We also unpack things like social science, understanding that maybe there is a magnetic component to people being stupefied into groupthink. Whether it's a madness of a crowd that's on the streets doing terrible things, rioting or looting or something, or in the ivory towers of academia and bureaucracy, in which they just can't, for the life of them, go back to first principles and question the received dogmas of the past scientific heroes that they have learned about in their particular textbooks. What we're talking about, folks, is systems thinking. That's what guides Science and You. We do this each Thursday. You can always look forward to it here in the Tampa Bay area on 1040 AM WHBO. Make sure you preset that and save that signal so that you always know from 4 to 6 to tune in across Tampa Bay for our program. And Thursdays is Science and You. And I have our chief science advisor, rocket scientist and physicist, Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu, I want to turn to some other topics that we have been looking at in the science world. I think you've been seeing this story about a black hole energy beam. Have you seen this?
Yes, actually, I read it today, and I found it's very interesting.
Yeah, let me set the table a little bit. It's a story on Vice.com. It's called "A Black Hole's Energy Beam is Seemingly Breaking the Laws of Physics." New observations reveal that an extraordinary optical illusion on a massive scale is making a jet from the galaxy 3C279. Oh, I knew that. You used to go to that galaxy, right? No, I'm just joking. Appear to move 20 times faster than the speed of light. One of the fundamental quirks of our universe is that nothing inside of it can be superluminal or faster than the speed of light, the article says. So what do you make of this, Dr. Yu?
I believe this is another use the traditional the theory we've been trained in school to explain this phenomenon. I don't believe, this is even though the observation that's true, but I don't believe the interpretation is correct.
Yeah, I'm looking at the graphic here, the artist rendering it, and it looks like a beam ejecting right into from the middle of the black hole, coming out of it.
Yes. I believe this is the jet we observed all through of the galaxy, cluster galaxy. So I have no problem with the jet. That's observational fact. However, the interpretation is the jet is because of eject from the center of the black hole, from the black hole outward, and this is called 20 times of faster than the speed of light. So the assumption, so the interpretation is something ejects at high velocity, like 20 times faster than the speed of light. So the article tried to say the reason to break the physics law because nothing can traveling faster than speed of light. So that's how they said why this one 20 times faster than speed of light because of the ejection. So that's why they mentioned this one. But I believe the mistake was made. Number one, the jet itself is not material ejecting. No material ejecting from the center of the black hole. Actually, they are falling through. If there is a black hole, they should have falling down the black hole. It should not be ejecting from black hole. That's kind of a black hole theory, so I'm not going to mention that one. So the eject, I believe this is opposite to intuition. So then, what is the jet? So my impression, there is no particle eject at the 20 times speed of light. No particle ejecting from them. It is just magnetic field. When you look at the plane of this galaxy, the plane is actually neutral field. But on both sides of the plane, that's where the jets come in, that's where the north and the south pole, north and the south magnetic field concentration part. So once the whole galaxy rotation, what happens? The magnet is wobbling, so the magnetic field, the north and the south pole has the strongest magnetic field. It's wobbling. So that vibration creates the light. It's not due to material ejection created light. I believe that's the mistake of common theory of black hole.
So you're suggesting that they don't have it quite correct. It's not particles that are being ejected, right?
That's right. It's not the particle being ejected. However, the magnetic north and the south pole field is vibrating because on north pole and the south pole they have the strongest magnetic pole, right? Magnetic pole field. So that's why when they're rotating, create what is vibration. The light is caused by vibration or called oscillation of magnetic field. So we see this strong jet because they represent a stronger north and south magnetic pole field. No particles ejecting out there. Actually, if there's a particle, they should have falling towards them.
Right, because isn't that because the black hole brings things into it,
black
right?
hole you have almost infinite of gravity, right?
So what's the establishment perspective on how a black hole, which is supposed to suck things in, is ejecting particles? How do they explain that?
That's right.
What's their explanation?
So
I'm trying to give their side too.
Yes. Suppose black hole has infinite gravity, so everything should fall in, right? However, they are talking about, at a certain distance through the center of the gravity. So you have the speed, you have the particle right at the boundary with the speed of light, the equivalent to speed of light. Anything outer of that boundary, so that's called the event horizon. So the speed of light, so that's less than speed of light. However, inside them, they said that they have a higher velocity. That's the theory, okay? So what happens on that event horizon? They said that the particles being break up to matter and antimatter. Okay, so somehow, the matter comes in, antimatter goes out. Somehow, that process can evaporate the black hole. Somehow, I believe this theory is totally stretch. The reason I think about that one, number one, I don't even believe the black hole, that's called a point particle, zero volume, have infinite gravity. I don't even believe such objects exist there's anywhere in this universe. I don't. So people want to say, why we say that we observe that there's a black hole? Let me tell you, no one ever can see a black hole. The reason called black hole, because it's so-called no light even emitted. Nobody can see it.
Wow, Dr. Yu, you're laying down the gauntlet against black holes and the consensus on that. We're going to have to unpack this more and find out what other hidden gems of the universe we need to learn about when we continue on A Neighbor's Choice.
Dr. Jim DiRispino from Center for Men's Health today in Frank's garage. Doc, I was talking to a buddy of mine, telling him about my spring break plans, and he's like, where do you get the energy to do all this stuff? I said, testosterone replacement from C4MH.com. And then he asked me what testosterone has to do with energy.
Most people are aware of the effects of testosterone has on strength and sex drive, but for 99% of our patients, energy is the main focus.
I became a patient because I didn't want to lose muscle mass.
And there is hard data that testosterone improves mood, concentration, and memory.
So Center for Men's Health isn't just treating testosterone deficiency, it's treating the quality of your life.
Let me make this simple. Your body is a machine, and that machine was designed to run with a perfect testosterone level. But if you want to see how good your machine can perform, go to C4MH.com and spend the $45. You'll get over $400 of lab tests and the 30-minute physician consultation.
It's fast, easy, and convenient with locations all up and down the West Florida coast. Go to C4MH.com.
Val's Tent Shop is on the air reminding all Americans to stand tall and show support to the brave men and women who serve our U.S. military. Now that proud troop salute brought to you by Val's Tent Shop, serving Tampa with quality service and pride. Known for their hard work and timely completion, give the pros at Val's Tent Shop a call today at 727-992-0713, 727-992-0713. That's Val's Tent Shop, thanking their customers and proudly saluting our troops and veterans.
They say it should be impossible for bumblebees to fly because their wings are too small for their bodies. But bumblebees don't care. They just fly. Bright Expectations is dedicated to helping our Florida residents with special needs and unique abilities find the resources, support, and inspiration that they and their families need to break barriers and achieve their dreams. Visit www.brightexpectations.com to start your journey today.
This message is sponsored by the Florida Department of Health, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
So you've decided to jump into the world of media with a podcast. How's that working? Hopefully well. But if you're only seeing a handful of downloads, then it's time to air your podcast on radio to give it the reach it deserves. Thousands will hear it, not just a few. Call today to find out more how we can bring an audience to your podcast on this station. 813-250-3883. That's 813-250-3883. Or email to info@unitedcitiespro.com. That's info@unitedcitiespro.com.
The Army National Guard plays a vital role in your community. We're on the front lines supporting essential personnel, first responders, law enforcement, and medical professionals, delivering food, supplies, and medicine, keeping communities safe, making a difference. During emergencies, we're always ready, always there. Learn more about part-time service in the Army National Guard at nationalguard.com.
Sponsored by the Florida Army National Guard, aired by the Florida Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Hello, this is David Gornoski. We're live on A Neighbor's Choice. We're doing our Thursday show, which is Science and You themed. It's where we explore our mission to advance a new understanding of science that can help bring us out of a dark age in my opinion, of ignorance codified by political coercion, entrenching outdated ideas of thinking about the world, our health, our bodies, how energy works. And joining me to do that is our Chief Science Advisor, Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu, as a physicist, I wanted to get your take real quick on the latest stories going on in the world of nuclear fusion. That's always a topic we like to keep aware of. Here's an ABC news story. This is ABC in Australia. Nuclear fusion promises a clean, green energy future, but there's a catch. And then when you go down and see what's the catch is that no one involved in the research believes a fully operational, commercially viable nuclear fusion reactor will be operating before at least 2050. Goodness, Dr. Yu, they keep putting it back a decade every time we look at these guys, don't they?
I saw that every time they say 5 years away, and then sometimes they say 20 years away.
Well, they must have caught some really pessimistic guys this time, because they didn't even bother with that nonsense. They just said 2050. See us in 2050.
30 years away.
Maybe they're realizing they're looking at the writing on the wall. They're like, give us another 30 years, please. We'll talk to you then. See ya.
That's right. Right now, on average, those firms doing called nuclear fusion research, the minimum they raise like $20 million as a starting point. Am I right? And many firms, they have a $20 billion, spend $1 billion, on this research. For the past 40 or 50 years, we're talking about it. And I think about it. The reason I do believe they said need another 30 years. I said if using the current method, maybe next 500 years, they cannot even get it.
Right.
The reason is we misunderstood where the energy truly comes from, atoms. That actually was a mystery, and even up to today, it's still a mystery. How could atoms combine together, create energy? It does not make any sense, right?
Right.
And what I found, so that's the secret. Where comes nuclear energy? Nuclear energy is not because you're binding two things together. You don't get energy. You're tying two things together. No, you only think you get more energy. You're splitting them.
Right.
So the so-called nuclear fusion energy, the energy part is by split atom at a deeper level than atomic bomb. Nuclear bomb is by split, not just atom by atom. Split atom is a cell, and split the nucleus of atom. So break the nucleus is basically the deeper level splitting. But why you're splitting atom or nucleus? You can get energy because the binding energy is what? Is a magnetic force. It's not the so-called strong force. If a strong force only pushing them together, binding them together. So the released energy is due to magnetic repulsion. When you split them, so that's where the energy comes from. So now we said, we observe what's called a hydrogen bomb. We observe this nuclear fusion energy. Okay, we said we see energy, and you said that the energy is due to splitting. But what we observed is the particle itself, the hydrogen itself, after nuclear fusion reaction, and the hydrogen combined, the protons are combined, form a neutral particle, that's helium. So that's why we thought, if we see more energy, and then we see two hydrogen atoms being fused together, come out with called helium. So that's why we think about it, because of combination, the fusing create energy. That's a mistake. Energy is created during split. However, what happens after the nucleus of atom splits? They become a charged particle. What happens to the charged particle? I mean the charge here is a magnetic charge. So they have a magnetic north and south pole. What happens to these charged particles flowing around after explosion? They seek each other. They seek each other to combine them. So naturally, north and south combine.
They're charged.
Well, they have a magnetic pole, right? So they attract to each other, right? If they are repelled, what happens? They rotate, then becomes the opposite pole.
How do you know they rotate?
Oh, this is you can do any experiment. If you have two magnets, you move the two magnets closer together, even though if it's the opposite pole, they attract, right? If it's a like pole, you move one of them, let the other one free. You move them towards that one. You will see the other particle rotate and then attract to you. They never throw away. So that means that whenever you have a charge, magnetic charge, so it will rotate and then they attract. So the force is a magnetic force attracts each other. So once two charged particles from nucleus, they separate. What happens when they cooling down? Now they starting to attract each other. They first maybe energy too high, bouncing off, but gradually as energy dissipates, cooling down, slow down. So now they can combine two magnets combined as a one neutral particle. That's where it forms the helium as a neutral particle. It's the most stable structure, right, among atoms.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. How come more people didn't start with the foundation that maybe magnetism was the key behind all of this? How come they always want to create all these other forces and make everything more complex?
Oh, this is the question reached to the core mistake throughout, throughout maybe over 100 years. Because we have this kind of discovery that we find there's two types of charges in this universe. One called the negative charge particles, like an electron, and then we said we've discovered positive charge particle, that's called a proton, or called a positron, if we consider they are matter and antimatter. Because of this conception, we have called a monocharged particle, single charged particle. When you have this concept, what happens? So now you understand that the electron will be different. You think, electron is only negative charge. Then we have positive charge. So in order to make a nucleus, in order to make a atom, so the opposite charge, it has to be attracted. However, so that's one mistake. But if you think about it, based on my research, I discovered there is no such thing called a monocharged particle. The so-called electron is just a magnetic particle. It has both north and south poles. It has a magnetic moment. And this has been proved by in experiments, and even get an award as the top 10 biggest scientific discovery of electron has a dipole, has a magnetic moment. I said that this is basically to demonstrate that electron, the so-called negative charge, no, it has both north and south particle. However, if you have a magnetic field, what happens is you will always see those electrons flying towards the magnetic field. Even if it's a light pole repel, what happens to free flowing electron? It turns around and then becomes an unlike pole that attracts.
So that's just common sense to observe the way magnets operate on a bigger scale. How come there's something called magnets that operate in the more classical magnetic way we look at them, and then there's everything else? If we're all made up of magnets, how come we're not just randomly sticking together or colliding together or repelling from people? Maybe we are, we just don't know it, huh?
Yes, and this theory works exactly to social phenomena. You know human beings, you know the theory better than anybody I know about the mimetic theory, right?
Right.
Basically, the theory says our human beings are copycats. We did from the beginning since we born. We always learn from others. What happens? We started copying each other. So that's natural case. So that's a magnetic effect. We copy each other because, this is if we don't know this, the opposite attracts, so we want to learn something new. So we always copy other people, something we don't have. So that's how turned to the mimetic theory works, human being copycat. However, when everybody desires, they have the same desire, so now it becomes like pole repel. So then you become actually, when you walk too close, like pole repel, so that becomes a competitor instead of becomes of the same team.
Right, because from far away, if our thoughts have a magnetic frequency, right, and from far away, someone seems really different from us, so we perceive them to be very different, so we're drawn and attracted to them. But then as we get closer to them, that whole saying, good fences make good neighbors. If we get too close together, that's when we start to feel repelled, right? That's, think about all the myths of the enemy twin brothers, that they have to fight each other because they're too close, they're too alike. And even to this day, I just saw a documentary of in Nigeria, in some places, they still practice whenever there's twins born, identical twins, they want to kill the twins because it's a harbinger for conflict and repulsion and negativity. So that's a superstitious thing, but it's still indicative that this idea of sameness seems to breed conflict in the way people interact with one another. Let's continue to unpack this in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice. Don't miss Science and You with Dr. Yu in just a moment.
Do you use the expensive blue or yellow pills to charge your sex life? Are you thinking about it? What if we can promise you the same results for less than $3 a pill? If you're paying $20 a pill for the other pills, you're getting taken to the cleaners. Our pills deliver the exact same results for less than $3. You'll save more than $16 a pill for the same results. And right now, radio callers will get 44 blue or yellow pills for $120 with free discreet shipping. You can save more than $700 off pharmacy prices. Charge your sex life now and save a ton of money. Call now and get your 44 pills and save over $700 and qualify for free shipping. Stop overpaying and
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice, the most electrifying show in media. I'm your host, David Gornoski. We're doing our Science and You edition. We do this every Thursday. It's where you and science come together for learning and growing, discernment, solving problems that can make our world transformative in the most amazing ways you can't even imagine. Well, that's what we're here for. And joining me, as always, is our Chief Science Advisor, Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu, I want to go to a question real quick we have from listener Chris. He says, what's the feasibility of levitation through frequency? Is there anything to that? People always talked about whether you can levitate things through frequencies of, vibrational frequencies. Is that how levitation works, or is levitation possible?
Okay, that's a good question. That's an interesting question related to frequency. So my interpretation, frequency itself seemingly have nothing to do with levitation. Okay. However, we do observe this phenomenon. When you're spinning, like a gyroscope, when you're spinning at a super fast rotational frequency, okay, I forgot this number in my head, maybe that 50 times per second or something, okay. We do observe the object itself like a lighter weightless. So that's where we'll be, if we use extreme case, if we have an infinite, rotational frequency higher, it will be getting lighter and lighter, and it could be, levitation. But this is due to what? I try to establish the connection by the rotational frequency versus this called gravity. So rotation basically means anti-gravity, right? We are talking about that effect. The reason is gravity, in my interpretation, is just a magnetic force. So whenever the Earth attracts to objects, when you throw an apple up in the air, so basically that's a magnetic attraction, magnetic field attraction. Whenever you have attraction in magnetic field, you have a repulsion too. If you can just flip them, of course, you can repel.
Now, wait a second. You're challenging Isaac Newton there. Sir Isaac Newton himself.
Yes, because right now we've been puzzled with this kind of black hole has to have an infinite gravity. That's exactly when we consider black hole. Why we say black hole exists? Because of the Newton's law. We said that based on the Newton's law, no object can orbit a black hole without being pulled in. However, in order for the object to not be pulled in by this infinite black hole, it has to have very high velocity around. So that's why we said we observed indirectly. We said the object traveling that fast. Newton's law were not work. So that's why we said we have a black hole. The assumption is Newton's law is true. And that's where I challenge it. I believe Newton's law has a problem. Newton's law, assuming everything has attraction with this constant gravitational constant, I believe that's the mistake. We do not have the same gravitational constant across different objects. You imagine how could the two planets' attraction will be the same as a planet as Earth attracted to the sun, because the sun is not a planet, and the sun is super high magnetic field. How can you consider the attraction between sun and the Earth are the same, like between Earth and Mars? No, that's different. The reason we do not have this constant gravitational constant, that's Newton's law needed to be reread. Once we believe there isn't this gravitational constant, now we can explain why we observe so-called black hole. Because we do not need this called 0 point the zero volume objects with infinite gravity, we don't need those objects. Because the attraction between stars are magnetic attraction. And the magnetic attraction is how much bigger than gravitational attraction is billion times billion times billion times billion times. So that means 4 billion times billion times billion greater than gravitation pull. So that's why we said, oh, this black hole is what is in this case 5 billion times than the mass of the sun. It actually, we don't need the black hole. We just the attraction between them use magnetic attraction. We're counted 5 billion times than Newton's law of gravity. It were counted very naturally. You don't need this kind of object.
Well, how come when Sir Isaac Newton saw the apple fall from the tree, he knew about magnetism and magnets? How come he didn't just assume that was magnetic force like you're saying it is?
Oh, because during Isaac Newton's area, we don't even know what it is called a constant, the gravitational constant. There's no measure to that. I believe this is G, gravitational constant, is just a placeholder in that equation, okay? We don't even know the value. The value measured is 100 years after Isaac Newton died. So that means the modern interpretation as this called the universal constant, but actually it is a variable. If your two neutral planets attraction is much, much less than a neutral like Earth. Earth has a magnetic field, and the sun attraction, because sun is a huge, giant magnetic field. The sun has this kind of thermonuclear explosion, so that's a plasma that forms a strong magnetic field. So that's why it has the biggest attraction among all the stars, all the planets in the solar system, because the sun is a super giant magnetic object. So everything else are neutral and being polarized by solar magnetic field. So that's why all the planets orbiting the sun, not orbiting each other.
Why is it that the galaxies look like big hurricanes the way they look? If you look at the pictures of them,
Okay, that's a great question. You know what? Number one, we know magnetic field will attract, right? Mm-hmm. Everything will attract each other. However, the biggest rotation hurricane, the problem, the reason is in order for things to attract but not being pulled close with the center, you have to have a rotation. You have to have a rotation. So that's why every single galaxy or its solar system in neutral attract, but it is still without being pulled to impact cleave each other. It has to be rotated. So this is called the eccentric force, the balance with this gravitational pull. So that's why that keep them. So it has to be rotated in order for the attraction force to not collapse. So that's why all the stars orbit the center of the galaxy, right? It has to rotate, just like a hurricane. The same thing we saw the movie like a cars of the cows, they're being pulled inside of a hurricane, right? Yes, yeah. So that means without or to keep it rotate, if too high, pulled inside, but in the outer layer, you have to rotate with them. That's due to the pressure field at the center rotation factor. It has a lower pressure field, so that's why you can pull something in.
So in the middle of the galaxies, is it, if it's not a black hole, you say black holes don't exist. Well, what's the space in the very, very center of the galaxy? What's it like?
That's right. We said we already imaged of the center of galaxy are dark, like a black color, right?
Right.
What happens? It's the same thing as hurricane. If we are living, your audience, living in the Florida, we all went through hurricane season. So I went through so many hurricanes, and we lived at the center of the eye, hurricane eye. It's surprising me. When hurricane wind is so big, it's at the edge of a hurricane. When they moved to the center, it's so calm. You don't even feel a wind inside of it. The reason all the heavy particles already, because the weight higher, so already, diverged to outward, already spin outward. In the center, it's a vacuum. It's almost vacuum. In the hurricane case, the vacuum of the object, heavy object, but still has air. But in the galaxy, center galaxy, it's absent of object. So that's where we see dark center. It's not because we have a black hole, no light come out, because we're absent of a light.
So, contrary to the establishment physicists and their imagination, they always say if you were in the center of the galaxy, you'd be torn apart by the black hole. That's actually incorrect in your understanding. If we were in the center of the galaxy, we'd be just peace. If we were in a ship or whatever, we'd be just okay, wouldn't we? According to you.
We have a zero gravity if you're truly at the center. The same thing happens at the center of the Earth. Yeah, that you do not have increased gravity, okay? You will have a zero gravity if you're right at the true, called the magnetic center of the Earth. That's contrary.
So you're certainly not going to be torn apart like the black hole idea, right?
No, not being gravity.
Well, your view of the universe is a little less violent there, at least on that issue, right? Let's continue live on A Neighbor's Choice with Science and You. Dr. Yu is in the house. We'll be right back.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to grow up without a mother or father? Or worse, having your father drop you off at a foster care facility and leave you there without coming back? Hi, my name is Cindy Tilley, and that's exactly what happened to me. I grew up in a foster care setting. I struggled every day to survive the difficult situations that I was not prepared for. And that is why I founded Forgotten Angels. Many children, boys and girls, are placed in a foster care facility here in Florida. Kids who have aged out need direction, support, encouragement in order to become productive citizens. That is exactly what we do at Forgotten Angels with our beautiful, tranquil facility in Valrico, Florida. We prepare these children to get an education and eventually get employed. Will you help? Please contact me at ForgottenAngelsFlorida.org. That's ForgottenAngelsFlorida.org. You can make a difference with these foster children.
And now the fine folks at Action Remodeling and Building are reminding all motorists to save the text message for a time when it's not going to cause an accident. Put down your cell phones and never text and drive. This safety tip is from Action Remodeling and Building, your #1 most trusted handyman. Where others fall, we take action. Call for a free estimate at 813-325-4727. That's 813-325-4727. That's Action Remodeling and Building, reminding you to never text and drive.
Dr. Jim DiRespino from Center for Men's Health today in Frank's garage. Doc, I was talking to a buddy of mine, telling him about my spring break plans, and he's like, where do you get the energy to do all this stuff? I said, testosterone replacement from C4MH.com. And then he asked me what testosterone has to do with energy.
Most people are aware of the effects of testosterone has on strength and sex drive, but for 99% of our patients, energy is the main focus.
I became a patient because I didn't want to lose muscle mass.
And there is hard data that testosterone improves mood, concentration, and memory.
So Center for Men's Health isn't just treating testosterone deficiency, it's treating the quality of your life.
Let me make this simple. Your body is a machine, and that machine was designed to run with a perfect testosterone level. But if you want to see how good your machine can perform, go to C4MH.com and spend the $45. You'll get over $400 of lab tests and a 30-minute physician consultation.
It's fast, easy, and convenient with locations all up and down the West Florida coast. Go to C4MH.com.
The following message is sponsored by the Florida Department of Elder Affairs, the Florida Association of Broadcasters, and this radio station.
Sarah is 64 and loves to garden. Recently, her health insurance ran out, leaving her worried about more than just weeds. She called the Elder Helpline and spoke with a volunteer Shine counselor about her options. There, she received free, unbiased counseling on health insurance for those on Medicare. For more information or to volunteer, call 1-800-963-5337 or go to floridashine.org.
My name is Roz. Most people know me as a spokesperson for 1-800-ASK-GARY. The driver made a left turn onto ongoing traffic, and I hit her. Once I got out of my vehicle and I was able to stand up, then I started feeling pain elsewhere. I had to think, call 1-800-ASK-GARY. They were on the ball, helping me find legal and medical help. They have thousands of other people, but they make you feel like you're their top priority. I made the call. I now tell other people to make.
Non-attorney spokesperson.
It's been called shell shock, war neurosis, and battle fatigue. Today, we call it post-traumatic stress disorder, and it affects 1 out of every 5 warriors returning from battle in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Wounded Warrior Project offers comfort and support for warriors with PTSD and all other scars of war, whether those scars are visible or hidden. Find out how to help, because for warriors, the greatest casualty is being forgotten. Please visit woundedwarriorproject.org.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gornoski. We're talking about science and you, as we do every Thursday. And we're happy to be joined by our rocket scientist friend, our physicist pal, Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu, I just wanted to go in a different direction for just a moment. What about something closer to home? You know, a lot of folks, including myself, we use a lot of LED lights. But I don't know how many people know how exactly they work. How do LED lights work? They're so prominent in our lives these days.
Very, very good question. The LED light, how that works. So one thing people know, actually, I should credit my son. He, maybe 7 years ago, 7 years ago, he said, Dad, we need to buy new Christmas lights. I said, we have tons of this regular, Christmas tree lights. And he said, no. He said, LED light does not generate heat. That was striking me. I said, how could a light does not generate heat? That's counterintuitive, right?
Right.
That's what exactly why LED light can live so long, because the heat does not affect them, does not burning them. The reason they do not have a fuse. We said that the reason we generate light is the electron goes through the fuse, the filament, goes through the filament, right? Goes through filament, emit those light particles. That's what we called. That's actually exactly that's what's wrong. The so-called we see the light, generated the traditional condensing ball and the light bulb.
Right.
That fuse. That light is coming from the vibration. So those molecules, not molecules, those atoms or electron particles. It's vibrating due to the vibration created the light. However, the filament created light only through the atoms, on the filament. So that's why when they vibrate too hard, what happens? They vibrate too hard, they create heat. And the heat burns the fuse off, burns the filament off. So that's why you do not have light. So you have a limited light. The LED light based on a totally different principle. It is not a single filament. It's a two-plate. Different semiconductor material. They have a gap in it. So there's no fuse between those gaps. Those gaps have a little, very spacing between them. So how create the light? The two plates have a different magnetic pole. Different, we call the electrical pole, right? It's actually a magnetic pole.
Right.
When you have a different pole, and so what happens? You create a vibration Now through the particles, through the fuse, you create a vibration of the air. This is called air in between. So in between the gap, when you create, just like you have two wires, two high voltage wires close enough without the contact, it will create the sparks, right? So very, very spark, a bright spark. That's where light comes from. Not from the touching of two poles. Between the gaps, vibrating the gaps create light. But those lights, those electrical wires close to each other, the charge is too high. Those lights are too bright. So what this one, semiconductor use a whole plane to create a light, vibration. Each of them are very smaller voltage. However, they're close enough to generate light through an entire plane. So that's why you do not see heat come up, because it's vibrating of those medium air, medium magnetic medium. So it's basically a vibration through the magnetic medium to generate light. It's not too bright because it does not have high voltage. However, it lasts long. It's very stable because it's not a single filament, single point. It is uses the whole square plane to vibration. So that's why it's stable. Seems like it's very stable and long and very, very mild. I'm talking about a mild compared with the spark from electricity. It's very mild. And so if you have no fuse, you do not burn out the fuse, of course, you last longer. And also, because it's less charge between two plates, so that's why the vibration, not through metal particle, is through the air molecule, the magnetic field in the gap. So that's why does not generate nearly as much of the heat as a regular condensate light bulb. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah, and it's just funny how so much that we take for granted, we just don't understand exactly how they actually work. And neither do the establishment so-called experts that we're supposed to always just wait on to tell us what to do.
That's right. The reason is the current theory, the existing interpretation has a problem. It says that it emits photon particles. No, there is the so-called the carrier of a light particle called a photon. Does not exist. We already, by definition, we already know photon has zero mass. Any particle without the mass, how could they exist? They don't exist. Okay? So what is light? It's a vibration of a magnetic field, magnetic wave oscillation. That's where light comes from. It's all vibration of the wave.
So we are in a sea of magnetism.
That's right.
So our minds can attract and repel in that sea of magnetism as well. Very interesting as always, Dr. Yu. My goodness, we've covered so many topics, and I didn't know that one show could fit so much variety in just a short time that we've had together. But we did it, Dr. Yu, and we'll do it like we always do, each and every week. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Folks, another edition of A Neighbor's Choice is on the books. Tomorrow we will have special guest Jeff Deist, president of the Mises Institute. We'll also hear from Pastor Jim Fitzgerald, just got back from the Middle East, has some thoughts about upcoming Resurrection Sunday in this unique time that we're in. Don't miss it, folks. We'll see you tomorrow at 4. Remember, if you have a story or a guest suggestion that you'd like to tell me, you can always contact me, David at neighborschoice.com. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and Facebook, and keep the fear away because we've got work to do. Godspeed.